Welcome to the Muscle Bikes Workshop. After 6 years, KTM have finally upgraded their ever popular Duke 390. So for 2024, they've completely revamped the platform. And of course with that, there's also a new fender to go with it. That's where we come into play. We've got one of our tail tidies here. We're going to show you how to fit that start to finish. Before we get started though, you're going to need some tools. This install was filmed with an early release bike. Sometimes these bike designs change over time, so please check the description below to see if we've listed any changes. To finish the job, you'll need a 10mm socket with an extension, a pair of side cutters or scissors, a 4mm Allen key, an 8, 10 and 14mm spanner, a Phillips head screwdriver, as well as a blunt flat blade screwdriver. Not completely necessary, but could be handy, is a pair of long nose pliers. And also not necessary, but quite handy, is an extendable magnet. In the box, you'll find the card that led you to this video, a cover plate, a bag with a number of nuts and bolts and cable ties in it, and then in amongst all these packing peanuts, wrapped in paper, you'll find the tail tidy itself. So the tail tidy consists of 2 arms, and then the plate mount itself. In the bolt pack, you'll find a number of cable ties, 4 M6x20 bolts, as well as 2 countersunk bolts, and then 6 nylock nuts. Now we've got all our tools together, we're going to start by taking the key and removing the pillion seat. Locate and disconnect the wiring plug that goes to the rear fender by lifting the tab. Next, you'll need to remove the 2 rubber plugs above the mounting bolts using a blunt screwdriver. Using your 10mm socket and extension, undo the forward 2 mounting bolts for the rear fender. This is where the magnet comes in handy, as you can use the magnet to remove the bolts once they're loose. We're also going to remove one of the rearward mounting bolts. So the rear fender is now only held on with 1 bolt. We're going to undo that bolt, but as we do so, we're just going to make sure that we hold on to this rear fender to make sure it doesn't fall to the ground. And once that bolt's loose, we can take the rear fender out, along with the bolt that was holding it on. We can now take that rear fender over to the bench, and we can work on getting these indicators out and into the tail tidy. So we now need to disassemble this tail piece in order to get access to the indicators and also to one of the plugs under here. We're going to start by taking our 8mm spanner, and just undoing this nut here, and this is holding on the reflector to the back here. So you can then remove that reflector, put that to the side, and then we're going to take our Phillips head screwdriver and remove this Phillips head screw just here. With that screw removed, we're going to turn this onto its side, and then in here there are 2 bolts which we use our 4mm Allen key to remove. So we just tip those out, and we can then split the 2 halves of the stock fender. I'm just going to undo this, take this little rubber out, pull the wiring out, and we can then disconnect this sub-loom from the 2 halves. So we're going to reuse this later, so we'll put that to the side. And we can now work at pulling these indicators out.
We've found to remove the indicators, it's easier to use a pair of long nose pliers. Inside here you'll find a nut that we need to undo. They're not done up very tight, so you can just undo them with that pair of pliers. You can do this with a 14mm spanner as well, but we've just found that the pliers work better in this situation. With that undone, we can then pull the indicator through. And then we want to take all the nuts and washers. We're now going to fit the indicator to the tail tidy itself. We're going to make sure as well that we put the indicator on the same side as we removed it from the bike. We're going to take this plastic label here. We're just using our side cutters because they're nice and sharp to get rid of this label. Then we're going to feed that through this hole here, along with the flat washer, the star washer, and the nut. And then do those up. And then we're going to do that up with our 14mm spanner. Of course, we then do the same to the other side. With both indicators fitted, we can now pay our attention to the number plate light. We're just going to unravel this here. And then what you'll need to do is take the stock plug off the stock light and fit it to this wire. We've got a separate video that you'll find up in the corner here that explains our favourite process for doing this. When we connect the plug, we need to connect the brown wire to the red wire and the black and yellow wire to the black wire. We can now finish assembling the tail tidy. We're going to need the left and right arms, the 2 countersunk bolts, 2 of the nylock nuts, and we're also going to need all the cable ties that came in the pack. We're going to start by fitting one of the arms with the countersunk bolt fed up from underneath there and the nut on top. Then we're going to use our Phillips head screwdriver and our 10mm spanner just to nip that one up. We're just going to go tight enough that we can still rotate this around, but that it's going to stay in place. What we're going to do then is we're going to take the indicator wire from that side and we're going to route that up, and you'll see there's these 2 holes in here, and there's also this solid bit in the indicator lead. That is going to mount between those 2 holes. So we're going to take one of the cable ties, run that up through here, and do this one up. We're going to try and keep this block on the inside here, and then we do the same down here. Run that one through there, and then again you'll see there's a little notch here. That's where the cable tie passes through. We can do that one up as well. We can then take our side cutters and trim the ends of those cable ties off. And then we repeat that process on the other side. So we're going to put the arm in place, countersunk bolt, nut, and then nip that one up again. And then this time, when we take this indicator lead through, we're also going to feed the number plate light wire up with it as well. So we'll start on the bottom one this time. feed that through from underneath. Make sure we capture both those wires. And I'm not going to fully tighten this one just yet. I'm going to start with the other one and get that one in first too. So just pull this through, make sure that we're positioned correctly. Then tighten those both up. Then we're going to take the side cutters again and just trim those ends off. So with that wiring done, we're going to take the sub harness that came with the bike. I'm going to feed this rubber grommet all the way out. We're going to feed it off the sub harness. So just going to feed these plugs through, one by one. So we're going to set that sub harness aside again. And we'll then take the infill panel here, and we're going to put this so that this smooth side, so you'll see this has a hollow side and a smooth side, that the smooth side is on the side that this is. So we're going to feed that into the hole. So this will take a little bit of pushing to get it through. Just going to make sure it's seated properly. And then this plate, we sit with the hollow side up, is going to sit here. So to do that, we're going to start by feeding all the wiring through it. And then this plug as well. And then we sit this on top here. Just going to make sure everything's sitting straight, and then align those holes with the holes on the top. This assembly is then what we're going to fit to the bike. So to hold it all together, when we go to fit it up to the bike, we're just going to take one of the mounting bolts and put it through these holes here. We'll do the same on the other side. And that will help us keep the assembly together while we put it up to the bike. So we're now ready to go and put the tail tidy on the bike. Before we do, just quickly make sure that this cover plate is kicked upwards. Now this process is going to be a lot easier if you've got someone to give you a hand. I don't, so I'm going to give this a shot on my own. Align the tail tidy up from underneath and make sure none of the wiring is going to get caught in between the tail tidy and the bike. Once you've got the tail tidy engaged, place one of the nylock nuts on top of each of the two bolts that you've pre-positioned. There's no need to tighten these up, these are just to hold the tail tidy in place. With the tail tidy in place, we can now install the forward two bolts. Installing the nut on this can be quite difficult. Putting the nut in the socket with a bit of electrical tape, they will stay nicely in place. We can then install the bolts from underneath using our 4mm Allen key and using the aforementioned socket to install the nut. With all four bolts installed, we can now tighten all the bolts. Reinstall the cover plugs above the forward two bolts. With the tail tidy now fully installed, we can finish off the wiring by installing the sub harness. We're going to plug the plugs back in, so the grey to the grey, the green to the green, and the red to the red. In our case, this is a pre-delivery bike, so we haven't been able to actually fit that plug. We can then also fit the main plug in. And then once that's done, we're just going to run a quick test. Again, because this is a pre-delivery bike, it hasn't actually been pre-delivered, there's no battery in it. But I just want you to turn your ignition on and then just check that your indicators are working left and right, that your number plate light's working, and then I also like to check that the brake light's working, just in case we've somehow tripped a fuse or something like that. If your number plate light isn't working, just remember that with that plug that you fitted, LEDs are polarity sensitive. You may have to switch the wires to make sure that that is actually working. So now we're happy that it's all safe and running, we can continue on and finish the installation. The final step is to align the rear plate holder. Use your 10mm spanner and your Phillips head screwdriver just to loosen it slightly, and then make sure that it's parallel to the ground and straight to the bike. Once you're happy with its position, you can tighten the bolts back up. We can now refit the pillion seat. Fit our number plate, and we're all done. It's a wise idea after you've been for a few rides, just go over everything again, check those lights, check all the nuts and bolts, make sure everything's still installed properly. We hope that's helped install your product. If you haven't yet purchased one and you'd like to, mustardbikes.com. We make a whole range of tail tidies for a whole range of bikes. Let us know how you've gone. Get in touch with us on Facebook, share your pictures on Instagram. Don't forget to like and comment on this video and subscribe to our channel. We love hearing from our customers. Thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Not Ducati. Locate at the... There. You get the idea.